Okay, let's talk about feet and injuries. So first off, I just want to say, I get called an influencer a lot. We're living in this world of influencers, but I'd rather be like a guide or an inspirer. I feel like influencers just kind of has a weird connotation. It's all semantics, but I just want to be very clear. I know nothing. There's nothing to know. There's nothing I'm trying to know because I'm aware that information is always changing. So rather, I'm in the experience of life and I'm uncovering the things that make sense to me. If I say something that resonates with you, cool, go research it, go figure it out because there's so much conflicting and contrasting information out there that can be very confusing. You have to find ways to be discerning within your own being, to filter things through your own experience. So don't just take what I say blindly. It's like the Buddha says, most religions are like a closed fist, like you have to believe on faith. The Buddha says, my teachings are like just an open hand, right? It's like, come try them on. If they make sense to you, if it works, if it resonates, cool. If not, awesome. So yesterday I went for a barefoot hike in the snow, and I've been talking about hiking in the snow barefoot and how to do it safely. And yesterday I didn't heed by my own warnings, and I didn't get injured. I just sustained a bit of a, let's see here. You can see my toes are a little swollen right now. Um, this toe specifically has a nice blister on it from the cold. So my toes feel just a little bit tender, almost like sunburned, right? I can walk totally fine. When I touch them, I feel like a little bit of tenderness, but otherwise they're okay. Basically, I went on a hike and it was probably 20 degrees Fahrenheit and it was snowing. And the first part, maybe did it to get to the trail. We have to like cut through this little area, and it was like 6 inches of snow, and I was just like trudging through it, and it was pretty intense. Towards the end of the hike, I did put on a wool sock at the very last piece, but at that point, we had been out for over an hour, and I noticed when I got home that my feet were feeling pretty cold, and then they were just going through these crazy experience. They were just like they were burning and they were like tingling, and I was like, whoa! I wasn't like in agonizing pain, but I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, what the heck is going on? And I felt it before. Like, you ever get like a bad sunburn, and then the next day or like later on that day, when it starts to really kick in, you're like, whoa, what did I just do? So let me make this very clear. When I go barefoot, it doesn't mean that I don't get injuries. When people wear shoes, they get injuries. There's so many injuries associated with shoes, but it doesn't mean that going barefoot, just because I think it makes more sense to me, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to sustain injuries. There's still the possibility that things are going to happen to my feet that, like, cuts and blisters and scrapes and burns and, things like cacti getting in my foot. I've had many, many, many things. But the cool thing is, as my foot rewilds, it gets stronger, it gets tougher. As I expose it to more elements, I like to say it's trial by fire. As I do these things, it gets stronger, it gets tougher. And personally, like, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm doing it in a way that feels safe and smart to me. Doesn't mean I don't push myself a bit too far sometimes. When I do, my body's like, whoa, you need to rest. Like when I ran my barefoot marathon, my feet were banged up. But the same thing happens with people that just run marathons in shoes. I've talked to a lot of marathon runners, and oftentimes, like, you have to change your shoes or your socks, or your toenails fall off, and you get all kinds of weird cramps and blisters. So it doesn't just mean that one way or the other is necessarily better. I'm always trying to make that very clear. I'm not saying you need to be barefoot, but just recognize how amazing your feet are. And if you're having a pull to try something different, there's going to be things that are associated. I spent probably, over 30 years of my life spending a lot of time in shoes. So when I went to do barefoot stuff and I'm in extremes, I'm in the mountains and it's hot, my feet can burn if it's too hot on surfaces, or if it's too cold, they can also burn, and get a little bit of like frostbite, and there's a difference between getting like a bad frostbite and gangrene, which I'm doing everything to avoid, and like having a little bit of like, this sort of cold burn, which I absolutely don't, it's like not something that I want to experience, but I'm aware that if I'm trying to condition my feet to get stronger, that they might get hurt a little bit, and I just always make sure that my feet are safe, and if they sustain a small injury, that I take time to rest and I let them grow and get stronger. I remember learning about Wim Hof. He attempted to climb Mount Everest barefoot. That's crazy, right? And he got really far, and then at some point he said his body was telling him that he was like basically getting frostbite and had to turn around, and he had it bad. The doctor said he had to amputate his, I think, his toes off. but he like did this whole thing for years. He was like just meditating and meditating, and everything turned out to be fine. So I'm not going to go to that extreme. As a dad who's a podiatrist, I've always been very scared of gangrene and, bad frostbite where your feet turn black and you lose feeling and, you have to get them cut off. That's like freaks me out, right? So I'm very cautious and careful. But again, yesterday I pushed it a little too far. So now I have like, my foot was a little bit swollen, but again, it feels okay. Feels like I can still move it fine and everything. So again, not a doctor, not a professional, not telling you what to do. And I've spent my life understanding my own health and the things that matter to me, and I push myself and I learn and I try to do it in an intelligent way. So injuries do happen. There's no one way to do things. There's no proper, perfect way. Everyone's figuring that out. Everyone's different. People live in different climates, different environments. They have different health, and abilities. And the mental piece is so huge. It's not just your physical being, but how are you processing it mentally? So keep in mind that I'm not the expert. I'm just here to share my experience. I'm letting go of these things that I've experienced. And if something resonates with you, then I urge you to go do your own research, to figure it out, to talk to people, to do what you need to do to make sense of this all. And that's exactly how I've done it. And all I can say is that I know nothing. And that I'm happy to know nothing because it keeps me open to the possibility of anything, while using my experiences from the past to discern what might make sense and what might not make sense. So, yeah, take care.